Once again, the spectacular scenery of British Columbia provides a backdrop for the world's newest Olympic city, as Vancouver prepares to host the 2010 Subaru International Half Iron. The third of the 5-race Subaru Western Triathlon series, following Shawnigan Lake and Victoria. Hello, I'm Dan Murphy right here at the Jericho Sailing Center, getting set to welcome 800 of the finest triathletes here to compete in a half Ironman course unparalleled in sheer natural beauty. Very pleased to be joined by Canada's Ironman guru, Steve King. Stephen, of course, well known to all Canadian and international athletes as both a commentator and competitor in the sport. And Steve, you're a big fan of this course.
I am indeed. I've been here a few years now, and I just love this course because it's very friendly for the athletes, but it's also friendly for the spectators and ourselves. We get to see the swimmers on 2 occasions, so we get to see the sort of pace and what's unfolding in the early portion of the race. Then multiple loops on the bike, a lot of excitement in both transitions, and then on the run course it's out and back on 2 occasions, so the athletes as well as ourselves gets to see what's happening out there.
As you expect, a very good field here, and let's start with the women and someone very familiar with the course, the defending champion.
Indeed, Magali Tisseyre. She is #1 in Canada at the 70.3 distance. It's going to be hard to beat her, but one lady who could do that is Heather Wurtele. She's just coming off a major Ironman win. Another person we could look for, Christine Fletcher. She's been top 3, and a couple of dark horses, Amy Kirkham and Janet Nielsen. I could see them in the top 5 comfortably.
As for the men,
Stephen Kilshaw, and Kilshaw is coming off a win at Shawnigan Lake. Chris Boudreau from the US is with us. Sadly, we're not having Jordan Rapp, last year's winner, because he was in a bad accident. But I could see also a couple of guys, one of them being a young man from Penticton, and I hope he's going to do very well up there. That's Jeff Symonds, very fast on the run, and Trevor Wurtele could surprise as well because he's fast on the bike. And another man, Adam O'Meara, just won his very first half Ironman, and that was in Victoria.
stay tuned, you don't want to miss a very exciting race. The Subaru Western Triathlon Series, brought to you by Subaru, sponsored by your Western Subaru dealers. Blue Competition Cycles, ride blue. And Cascadia Hotel and Suites, providing all the comforts of home and more. Jericho Beach, slightly overcast day, some 800 athletes getting set to take part, Stephen, and I'm guessing right now the nerves are a little bit frayed.
They are indeed. Some of these athletes are going to be first timers at the distance or first timers to this particular race, and it is 6:30 in the morning, so they've had some stress just getting prepped for the start, and they know they're just minutes away from that as the countdown begins. 6:30, what a race, and we've even had a full start there, I believe. We hadn't heard the countdown, so you can see pre-race anxiety. A lot of tension for these athletes.
4, 3, 2, 1.
There we go, Dan. It is now underway, and when we look at the different coloured caps there, you've got different coloured caps to signify the men, the women, the relay teams, and there's a few white caps that are probably going to be out there. They're usually given to swimmers who have a little concern for safety and their ability to swim, so that means some of the people that are part of the rescue squads out there, or divers, etc., will be watching out for them.
This is the human washing machine, the start of a triathlon.
But in no time at all, you've seen some breakaways by the early swimmers there. You can see the temperatures, you can see it definitely is choppy, and it is cold.
Joining us on the broadcast today, Steve, Lance Watson, Olympic gold medal coach, providing insight on how to race triathlon. What better place to start than the start?
The race swim start is a crucial part of the athlete's day. It sets the tone for how the day might unfold. An athlete with a good start is able to get into a better drafting pack and be able to be pulled through for a faster swim overall. The first thing the athlete wants to think about is inspecting the start area, looking for sinkholes or troughs that might set them off balance as they run into the water. Keeping high heels and ankles up and over the water, much like a hurdler going over hurdles, allows them to run further, and we know that it's always faster to run than it is to swim. Knowing the skills of the competitors is also important. Picking someone slightly faster than you to start beside gives you a better chance of getting off to a faster start.
Well, there's a man athletes should definitely listen to. Bear in mind, he coached Simon Whitfield to that inaugural gold medal at the Olympic Games in Sydney in 2000. Hard to believe that was 10 years ago, but right now here in Vancouver, we've got an exciting race already shaping up. You've got a lead man out there, which appears to be Ian Young. No surprise he will be in the lead, but Olympian Mark Johnson is out there for a relay team as well. We've got 3 or 4 other Olympians that are actually swimming and racing throughout the day. We'll see Ben Rutledge, of course, later on. But let's focus on what's happening in the women's race. Leading in the women's race, but in the relay, is Gaby Bolaños from Guatemala. But the race in the solo division is on right now between Heather Wurtele, and she is someone we really need to look for an overall win here today because of her major win this year in St. George's. But also alongside her, we've got last year's champion, of course, Magali Tisseyre, who set that incredible record for the course last year of 4 hours, 14 minutes and 34 seconds. There they are together, Dan.
Now, can these Olympian swimmers be good rabbits for the people competing in the half hour and someone to keep on stay on their feet?
Well, they can indeed. When you look at someone like Mark Johnson, he was on the national team for 10 years, 2 Olympic Games, bronze medal at the World Championships, and 5th for Canada in a 4x200 relay as well. He's a man who led them out last year. But Ian Young, just a few days ago on Canada Day, he was 4th overall in the Sasamat Lake swim, which is 4 kilometres. That is Ironman distance. Today, the distance, 2 kilometres. We're going to see 2 loops of this swim course as well. So we're going to see the breaks and the separation between the athletes. Right now in the women's division, as you can see, there's absolutely nothing between Tisseyre and Wurtele.
Fantastic day at Jericho Beach. The swim is well underway. Stick around, more to come from Vancouver. Welcome back to the Subaru Vancouver International Triathlon. Dan Murphy alongside Stephen King. And Stephen, these athletes racing for more than just prestige today.
They are indeed. There's $15,000 in prize money and prizes up for grabs. And don't forget, there's athletes from 10 countries that are also represented here. At this point, they're coming up to the halfway mark. But let's bear in mind, there are 3 sections of this course, each 315 meters apart. So these athletes know what's happening around them when they look side by side. As you can see, bilateral breathing going on here between our 2 leading females in the individual competition. Nothing separating them. They know the battle is on for them. But Ian Young, about to exit, he's going to be the first man to come on through. This is a man who I think 3 years ago in Hawaii did go sub 10 hours for the Ironman distance, and that included a sub 50-minute swim. As I said just a few days ago, he did 49.36 for a 4K. Looks around, sees no one that close behind as he goes back into the water. I think Mark Johnson was the man who's the closest there in the relay, but others, we've got Jeff Symonds coming through. And don't forget, a few weeks ago in Oliver in British Columbia, just down the road from where he lives, he ended up with the 2nd place on the swim behind the great Olympian Paul Tisseyre. So others going in there. We've also got near the front of the pack Sveto Svijarak, we've got Stephen Kilshaw and Chris Boudreau. These guys are all fairly close. Someone going the wrong way has got to come back and go over the timing mat and around the buoy. Otherwise, he'll be penalised a bit there, but penalised by a few seconds. But back in there, you can see those 5 men just ahead. And again, that includes some relays that we've got here. So Fast and Furious, another relay team. You've got Gaby Bolaños amongst that group. She too now going back in for the first of the relay teams in the women's division. Now here come the leaders in the women's race. And again, you look at the times they're going to be recording here. Someone else just making a slight slip there, but there's going to be no problem here. The taller of the 2, Heather Wurtele, is leading them through. There's about a foot difference in height between these 2 athletes, but they're very, very fast. They're going to be looking at times maybe overall around 4 hours, 15 minutes.
Good day for the Wurtele family.
It is indeed. We see Trevor Wurtele approaching now in the red cap there. Let's remember, he's no stranger to this particular event. He was here in the inaugural event in 2007, came 3rd overall to Andrei Yastrabov of the Ukraine and Canadian Chris Brown. Did a time then of 4 hours, 6 minutes. He may hope to beat that if he wants to win here today. I think that's Janet Nielsen heading back in there, and she's had some great races already this year with a 2nd in Shawnigan Lake.
As you said, no surprise, Ian Young leading the swim. All-Canadian swimmer at Brock. Clearly this is his best discipline.
It is, but he's also an extremely strong cyclist. He's gone sub 5 hours for the 112 miles in Hawaii. He did that, I believe, in 2007 as well. So I could definitely see Ian being up there amongst the leaders going off onto the run course.
So a bit of a gap in the men's race, but not with the women, Steve.
No, indeed. Magali just off the feet of Heather there. But again, it comes down to transitions as well. We'll be watching those to see if anyone can make inroads into Ian's lead once he exits. It's always exciting in the transition era, but we've got a ways for these guys to swim before we see them running up the beach. It was interesting to see Magali actually make some adjustments on her goggles before she ran back into the water, but Ian Young pulling further and further away. Mark Johnson will be a bit surprised to find himself behind at this time.
315 meters until Mr. Young hits the beach. Here now Lance Watson with some ideas of what he should do once he exits the swim.
The wetsuit is the triathlete's best friend, but it can also be their nemesis. It keeps them warm and afloat in the ocean, but it can be a bit of a wrestling match to get out of it in transition. A well-trained triathlete values every second lost on race day, so having a method to getting out of the wetsuit is key to success. The first key is to be methodical and have a system to think it through before you even start the race. Don't touch your cap and goggles at all until you're out of the water and you're on your beach. You're going to need your hands free to be able to get out of that wetsuit. As you run to transition, peel your arms out and let it come down to your waist. You want to be half undressed by the time you get to your bike. When you get to your bike, yank it hard down to your ankles and kick your legs high in the air, kind of like a Broadway line dancer. One last step, and you're out and you're ready and you're off on the bike. One last tip that triathletes can use is to make sure and use a little bit of lubrication on the outside of the arms and the legs. When you think about pulling your wetsuit off, it turns inside out, and that helps you slip out just that much easier.
Ian Young with a substantial lead in the swim. Is it tough sometimes to pace yourself, Stephen, when there's no one around you?
Well, it is, but this man knows what he needs is the biggest cushion he can get between himself and the others in the solo division. Jeff Symonds, we see there, I'm really impressed with what he's done. A few years ago, he would be swimming maybe around 30 minutes, and in the last couple of years, he has really motored. And the lead women now, again, showing that they are clear of the rest of the pack. It looks as though they may have maybe 90 seconds up on third placer. I think that's Janet Nielsen, who's in that third place, but look at the battle between Heather Wurtell, who had such a phenomenal race this year in Utah and taking the St. George's inaugural Ironman. And here comes Ian Young. What a great swim. We're going to see swims, I think, around 23 minutes or so as he exits. Again, there are timing match. Yes, 23:26 we just saw on the clock there. Again, the times are taken as he comes under the arch. And look at that, we've got relay swimmers in there as well. But Ian Young, the first person to go on through. Those other people, in fact, were finishing their first of the two loops. But we get ready to see the second place person. I think it was still Mark Johnson. It is indeed. There he is, that great Olympian. 10 years on the national team, 14 national titles to his credit. And now we're seeing some of the other solo swimmers out there. Jeff Symonds is that man going under right now. Here comes Ian Young into the transition area. Something is done in the lead on a few occasions. He hasn't had the sort of resume that he would like to this point with some major victories in his career, but he's raced throughout Canada. He's raced in Muskoka and places like that, and he can dominate on the swim bike combination. Now Mark, of course, would love to see his team come away with a win, but here it is, Jeff Symonds coming into transition. He'll be ecstatic to realize that he's in the same sort of position he was in Oliver, where he went sub 4 hours, and it was he and Paul Tisseyre, the first men ever at that race in Oliver at the half to go sub 4 hours, when Matt Seeley of Montana had held a record of 4 hours 3 minutes. Now, can they bust the record here today? Record set by Jordan Rapp last year. The American did 3:53.17, but there's that 56 miles of biking, there's that half marathon run. Let's find out what's happening and the difference as they go out onto the bike course.
No time wasted in transition. You'll notice the athletes have their shoes already clipped into their pedals.
Absolutely. I believe Chris Boudreau will be next up. He's an American as well out of Portland. Got second in Shawnigan Lake this year with a 4:04, so he's looking for good things. But he had a win in the suit race that is part of the Western Series here as well. So that was a couple of years ago. Others now we're seeing coming out there. You've got
Kilshaw, I think, just went by.
He did indeed, and he is a big threat there today. Don't forget, he was the winner in Shawnigan Lake this year. Did a 4:02 there, and he's been second to people like Jasper Blake, his mentor, when they battled it out in Victoria last year.
There you see him in the white, Stephen Kilshaw, and they would practice these transitions nearly as much as they practice the different disciplines, wouldn't they?
They would indeed. We'll get to see Brent McMahon. We saw him earlier doing that, the Olympian, showing exactly how it should be done. Very, very smooth. Looked like something was dropped there. Athletes are so focused, sometimes they miss things like their goo. There's Heather Wurtele exiting the swim. I believe we're looking at times around 25.5 minutes for the women, so super fast times already for our leading twosome. There they are, both in transition, and they're opposite each other right now. They can see what is going on around them, and of course this transition is vitally important. A few seconds, you can lose something in terms of some vital equipment that you need on the course, or you can make it up and get away from the person, make an early break. I don't think that's going to happen here because they know it's going to come down to the run on this particular course. But Heather Wurtele, look at that, just a second or two separating them as her husband Trevor is now exiting. Again, we can expect big things from him. These two travel all over together in a van. They've been wandering through North America taking on challenges. Last year, in fact, he got a 6th place in Ironman Coeur d'Alene, and this year he was 13th in St. George's, Utah, the race that his wife Heather won.
Sold their house in Victoria, bought that RV to train full-time, be full-time athletes, and he just turning pro last year as well. So he's looking to get a podium finish here.
And that looks like Janet Nielsen. She is, in fact, in 3rd place. No surprise, a tremendous swimmer, former member of our national under-23 squad as well, and coming off a great 2nd place overall in Shawnigan Lake at their half Ironman, and that was in the early part of May.
The athletes get to see each other here in transition, but they get to keep track of each other all through this course, don't they?
Yes, indeed. At this point, someone has probably already told her, or she listens to the on-site announcers. I know Jordan Back is there. He probably let her know that there's 2 or 3 minutes separating them, as Christine Fletcher now exits as well. She's been as high as 3rd place overall at Ironman Canada, but she's had some major wins in her career, including in Souk.
They do loops of the swim, and now we do loops of the bike coming up, don't they? So you can see sometimes on the turnaround just how far you're back or how far you're ahead.
Absolutely. There are 4 loops of this bike course as we get ready to watch Christine. Again, she was 3rd place overall here at this race last year. She knows exactly what she's doing. She has won the Victoria race. She won that in 2004, and she's also been a winner of the Desert Half Iron, and that's in Osoyoos. Very hot there, not so hot here today except the competition.
Well underway on the bike course, Steve. Ian Young the first out of the water, but we've already seen our first lead change.
And there it is. It is Jeff Symonds from Penticton. It's pretty hot up there, but this young man started his career as a runner, and he's a former BC cross-country junior champion. Took on the sport a few years ago. In fact, I remember commentating at his first triathlon as a junior, and here he is leading the pack. And in the women's race, there's still only a few seconds separating 1st and 2nd place. And there's our 2nd placer at this time, of course, Magali Tisseyre.
She is the defending champion. She's opting for a nutrition break, and we'll take a break of our own. More from the bike course in Vancouver right after this. Welcome back, everybody. Dan Murphy alongside Stephen King at the Subaru Vancouver International Triathlon. That there, Heather Wurtele, she's not just good at this distance.
She certainly isn't, but this is her favorite distance, as well as double this distance being Ironman, of course. So we're looking for big things. She's won the national championships on a couple of occasions at long distance, and this young lady who last weekend was in Texas, and that's at Lubbock, she did the Buffalo Springs and won there over another Canadian. Great to see. That Canadian was Angela Nath, not racing with us today, but back once again. That is Stephen Kilshaw, the man who placed 2nd overall last year to Jordan Rapp and went inside 4 hours with a 3:59.48 clocking. Looks like he's trying to move into that 2nd place that's being held presently by Ian Young.
These swim results are in. Fantastic race so far between Magali Tisseyre and Heather Wurtele. They were 1-2 coming out of the water for the women. As for the men, Ian Young got out of the water first. He's been passed by Jeff Symonds. Couple of other race favorites, Kilshaw and Bourdreau in 4th and 5th. Now who do we have here arriving in style? We already know this race is attracting real celebrities, but this year we've reached beyond the boundaries of planet Earth and managed to sign up Vancouver's famous or infamous Green Men. These guys first appeared at Vancouver Canucks home games when they silently harassed any opposing players unlucky enough to get a gig in the penalty box. They're here at the triathlon, ready to take part. It's training time. They may be a men of few words, but they sure make up for it in action. They look lean enough, but I'm not sure how much muscle is under those green suits. The boys have certainly taken this event seriously. How is that for a display of strength? Time now for a little endurance training. And this is old school. One in a vehicle, one on the ground. Force the short end of the straw, but things can be fixed in a hurry. Looks like the competitive spirit is alive and well. All right, let's get in the water now. Seems like they're going to start swimming practice with a high dive off the pier. All right, they're going to take off together, or maybe not. Neither guy biting there. Tough to make triathlons when you can't swim, fellas. No blowholes in those green suits, I guess. The dream is dead. A tragedy. What's a green guy to do? Wait, someone's here to save the day.
What's up? You look so sad. Oh, you can't swim. I might be able to help you. I kind of know a thing or two about swimming. You down with that?
Salvation at last. The green team is born and ready to roll. More hijinks later, but now back to the real athlete, Stephen.
And we're looking at number 17. That is Mike Neal, and Mike is just coming off a second place overall in Victoria. That was last month, and that was to Adam O'Meara, who had his very first ever victory in one of these series races. But Mike was in fact leading well into the run course before Adam overtook him. Finished with a 4:05, and he's also been the Canadian long distance athlete of the year, as well as top Canadian in Kona. Talking about top Canadian, there's Ian Young, the top man out of the swim today.
As for the women, Heather Wurtele trying to make a move on race leader Magali Tisseyre, certainly trying to keep her in her sights, which is something you can do on this course, Stephen.
Indeed, there are 4 loops and they make some turns, one of which we see, and she's able to look over to her left and she sees Magali Tisseyre. Magali, of course, a violinist, snowboarder, skier, and has a master's degree in kinesiology or biomechanics out of McGill. But look at the turn for Heather Wurtele. She knows she can hang tough. She is a very, very strong cyclist. In fact, she's been 3rd overall a couple of years ago at Ironman Canada.
Magali not having many problems climbing the hills at UBC's endowment lands, but just in case you do, here's Lance Watson with more coaching.
One of the key aspects to climbing and climbing well is attention to technique. First choice that an athlete has to make is whether to be seated or whether to stand on the hill. Now, standing in the pedals can be an 8 to 10% increase in power output and higher heart rate, which means more energy cost. When riding seated, the athlete pays attention to cadence, which is leg speed on the pedals, trying to keep a nice smooth rhythm. Hands are close to the center of the stem. A relaxed, still upper body is what they strive for. And paying attention to selecting the proper gears, not to be over-geared and letting the leg speed drop too low. When the hill does ramp up, an athlete may decide to stand. When we watch a young child ride the bike, they tend to stand upright over the bike and jump back and forth from the pedals. What we look for in a hill climber is a smooth rocking of the bike below the body. It sways gently side to side. They engage their arms and use the bike like a lever. This lets the foot drive straight down onto the pedal and generating more power. When the athlete does stand, they think about pushing the pedals forward, and when they sit down again, they make sure and maintain that momentum that they just created through the excess power.
So a great demonstration of riding form from Olympian Brent McMahon, and a man who's won the 70.3 championships in New Orleans, as well as a bronze at the World Xterra Championships. Right now, Ian Young still holding firmly in that second position. He knows what's going on behind him as well, Dan.
And he's just trying to keep pace with race leader right now, Jeff Symonds from Penticton, keeping him in his sights to make sure he can reel him in.
And look at that. It's still very, very close between these two guys. Jeff will not be surprised to find that Ian's there, but he may not know much about Ian in terms of form. I don't think he's raced with him before, but he has raced a couple of times against people like Jordan Rapp, last year's men's champion. Trevor Wurtele, he is on fire right now as well. Not a surprise. This man has been second to Andrei Yastrobov, to Jonathan Caron as well, and that was in Victoria, the New Balance half. And don't forget, Jonathan Caron has been second at Ironman. This man's one of the mentors from Penticton, is an Ironman Canada champion in the form of of Tom Evans, and these guys have gone 1 and 2 before in Osoyoos at the desert half, so he knows what he's doing. He knows he's got the run down pat because he has run around 72 to 75 minutes off the bike before at the 13.1 mile distance. Mike Neal's still very strong, presently in 4th position, and again he's at a 4th place at Ironman Coeur d'Alene overall. That was 2 years ago, and a sub 9 hour performer at the Ironman distance. Would love to go sub 4 on this course.
So out of the water, it was Young Symonds. Now they flip-flop. On the bike, Symonds in 1st position, Young in 2nd. And there you see the racer from Penticton. Works at the bike barn up there, looking for a victory here in Vancouver, what would surely be the biggest victory of his career to this point. All right, what's going on with Team Green Relay Team? Anna Mae Pierce, of course, electing to swim for Sully and Force, and that clearly their best option by a long shot. Usually opposing hockey players are the ones that feel the wrath of the green men. Today, Ben Rutledge, Olympic gold medal rower, and he knows he is directly in the crosshairs of Sully and Force at this race.
Oh, I'm a little dismayed. I've been training pretty hard for this, and I feel like I've got a bit of a bad call and a penalty sitting in the box. So that's what they do. They want me as their marked man. I'm gonna do whatever I can.
Anna Mae and Ben getting set for their 500-meter swim. We're getting set for a break, but stick around. You don't want to miss the elite athletes in the half iron and the bike to run transition. Welcome back to the Subaru Vancouver International Triathlon. Right now you're looking at men's race leader, Jeff Symonds.
And he has had a brilliant bike ride here. I believe he's averaged over 40 kilometers an hour on those 4 loops. We're looking at about 2 hours, 14 minutes for the bike split alone. He spends a lot of time practicing the transition from bike to run. And it's amazing the speed he has almost immediately once he gets onto the run. He does have an interesting running style, as we'll see in a moment, but just look at the speed. He's going to be interested to know exactly who's behind him and what sort of gap he's opened up. It looks to me as though he's opened up a couple more minutes on Ian Young and maybe 3 minutes on someone like Stephen Kilshaw. As excess time, that is amazing. He'll find out what his overall split is once he comes onto the run course as we get to see Ian Young. Now, Ian looks to me as though he's ridden a 2:16. That too is over 40 kilometers an hour bike speed, or 25 miles an hour. Now, Ian, usually the running is the worst of the 3 disciplines for him, but as we've said, this man has gone sub 10 hours for an Ironman distance, did that in Hawaii. He's someone who could surprise today. I didn't even know he was on the roster of athletes that were taking part in this year's event, the 4th time we've been here at the Vancouver half.
Surely then Jeff Symonds, with his running abilities, would be happy to be exiting the bike quicker than Ian Young.
Absolutely. This is giving him even more of a margin. It's going to be interesting when we see the women come in too. Who's got the fastest transition? Ian out there, and of course, here's Steve Kilshaw. And again, this man's got lots of leg speed. He ran 70 minutes and 50 seconds for the half marathon last year. He's been a winner of events like the Souk Sprint as well. And he's even won the Self-Transcendence Triathlon on Vancouver Island. That's the oldest triathlon, in fact, in British Columbia, an event that began in 1980. Right, here we are 30 years later, Stephen Kilshaw having a phenomenal race, but he wants to move up the field. He may have to settle for 2nd today, but he's also got to worry about who's behind him.
Looking to finish 1 spot up on the podium from last year where he did finish 2nd.
Indeed, and talking about 2nd, this is a man who was 2nd to Stephen Kilshaw in the Self-Transcendence Triathlon in 2008. He was 2nd last year in the Vancouver Triathlon to Andrew Russell, and he recently came 2nd to Adam O'Meara in the New Balance half in Victoria. He did a 4:05 then, but even though he's a fast runner, he sometimes loses the race on the run, but he has to establish a bit of a cushion coming off the bike. Today he hasn't got that cushion, but just like in Oliver recently, he can have a phenomenal race, a lot of money on the line. He was 5th in Oliver behind the likes of Olympian Paul Tisseyre, Jeff Symonds. We also had on that day Scott Curry and Carl Marcotte. Those 2 guys are from Alberta, but today the focus is on British Columbians who are doing extremely well.
And these guys know each other so well. They know their strengths, they know their weaknesses. They've raced against them many times.
And look at this, we have another Canadian and we have the top American in the form of Chris Boudreau, but it's Trevor Wurtele who's just ahead of him. And these guys too have averaged about 39.5 kilometers an hour. They have lost a little more on Jeff Symonds there, but can they make up ground on the run? Boudreau, as we've mentioned, he got second in Shawnigan Lake this year as well. We've seen him take a win in Souk, that was 2 years ago, and Trevor Wurtele would love to get better than the seconds he's had, including the New Balance half in 2007, 2008, and of course he was in third position here 3 years ago.
Wurtele, a racer on the rise. I mean, in the past he's kind of been known as Heather Wurtele's husband. Now he's a real competitive racer. A guy has a chance to win every week.
He does indeed. He's been the second BC athlete to finish at Ironman. Did that a couple of years ago when he was just 1 minute over the 9-hour mark. And look at this, really nothing separating those two guys. Wurtele on the left and Boudreau on the right. And in the women's race, they've only got a short way to go before we see them in the transition. And look at this, Heather Wurtele is now making some inroads on our leader to this point, Magali Tisseyre, as they make what is the final left-hand turn.
These two have been neck and neck since they got in the water.
And they are pulling away from the rest of the field. The rest of the field, Janet Nielsen, we understand, is right up there. Amy Kirkham, Christine Fletcher, and there's a breakthrough coming from a lady who's moved through the field in Ray Shaw. She's out of Seattle in the US. But look at there is a break. Heather Wurtele has made a move. Maybe she wants to get a cushion. Maybe it's just about getting prestige, or even if there's a preem on the line today.
These two good friends, you mentioned that last week Magali Tisseyre won the Buffalo Springs Triathlon. How tough is that to come back the next week and race another 70.3?
Well, it's very tough, but athletes these days, because of the IM Series and the 70.3 races that are around the world and around North America and in Canada, they can make some good money and their recovery is fairly quick. But of course, you've got to place travel into that as well. Flying back and forth from Texas is not an easy thing to accommodate, but today she knows what she's got to do. Last year's winner, she's the record holder. There is Christine Fletcher, a lady we would anticipate being in the top 5 today.
Christine and the other women well behind the first and second place in the race right now, of course, Tisseyre as well as Heather Wurtele.
And that's the time we've seen Amy Kirkham. She's the one closest to us at this time. She had a brilliant race, taking second in the Oliver half, did a 4:32 there, and that was behind Ray Shaw, who we understand is some way back of them but gaining ground. Janet Nielsen moves back into that third position. She had a brilliant swim as always, and she's had a couple of second places, including Shawnigan Lake, including Victoria.
This is the point of the race where these athletes really have to know what to use for nutrition, what to have their bodies fueled with in terms of the run, because they've still got such a long ways to go to finish this race.
They did, and Amy Kirkham was with us last year. In fact, she got a 7th place overall, did a 4:44. She would have to be closer to the 4:30 mark, I believe, to be top 3 or 4 here today.
How discouraging is it for these racers on this bike course to see where the leaders have been in terms of how far ahead of them on the course?
My guess is they're pretty much aware that first and second places have been sewn up. However, there's still 21 kilometers of running to do. But Amy, for instance, has gotten a 3rd place last year in Victoria, the New Balance half, and that was behind such incredible runners as Cheryl Murphy and Lucy Smith. So she knows how to run. Right now, she's sitting on the back of Janet Nielsen.
Well, the female athletes are making one of their final turns towards the run. We're going to take a break. The women are in transition right after this. The men are running at the Subaru Vancouver International Triathlon. The women have just the transition before they get there. We see the top 2 women at this point in the race, Heather Wurtele along Magali Tisseyre.
And it looks as though she has got a time around 2:25, only a couple of seconds separating them. That would average about 37.5 kilometers an hour for both of these riders. There's really nothing in it right now. So let's wait and see who the quickest person is in transition. My guess is based on what we've seen before. Magali does the shorter races. Heather does those Ironman races consistently, but she's been a 2-time Canadian national champion at long course. But let's see the difference here as we see some other men that are coming into transition. Who wants getting off and run right now? There she goes, Magali Tisseyre. Now the seconds are going to matter at this point, and she is looking so smooth. Some people are very sluggish as they come off their bikes and onto the run, but she looks far from sluggish right now. Got a man from Speed Theory just ahead. I believe that may be Eric Holden who's heading out there just a second or two ahead of her. As in transition as well, Christine Fletcher. Now she would love to place top 3 here today. She's done that at this race last year. She's been third at the New Balance half in 2007, but she won it in 2004. She's a former winner as well. I believe it was 2009. She won suit. She was second the year before that. But there's your second placer overall, Heather Wurtell. And here is a lady who's really come through the field on the bike, and not surprising, she won overall in Oliver and set a new course record. That was Ray Shaw. Amazingly, the record she set there was 4:30.34, and that was better than Australian Magali Jones and American Lindsay Corbin, who have won that race before. Presently, we're seeing Amy Kirkham now into transition again. This is a lady who was 7th last year. She was 4th in nationals at Olympic distance in Kelowna last year, and she won the Olympic distance in Shawnigan Lake last year as well. So she knows how to run. She's off the bike in a top 5 position. She would love to move on to the podium and be top 3, but she's got competition. Don't forget, Janet Nielsen was alongside her the last we saw them on the bike. So Amy Kirkham now off onto the run course. That's racer number 5, but there's racer number 1 in terms of overall position, Jeff Symonds from Penticton. And you look at the way he's running, you think maybe he looks awkward, but I tell you, he's putting it all out on the line, and he always looks like that, whether he's doing a 10K or whether he's doing a half marathon. And there is Ian Young overtaking one of the age groupers. Looks to be comfortable right now. My guess would be he would love to end up in the top 4 as he was in Port Moody in the Sassmat swim just a couple of days ago. But top swimmer, a lot of prestige there. This man last year had a phenomenal race, going sub 4 hours behind the overall winner Jordan Rapp, and did a 70-minute plus half marathon run. Looks to be in good form, Dan.
Yes, Stephen running very strong. Well, the swim and bike are in the books. Here's the results for the women. Heather Wurtell, Magali Tisseyre have been battling and are 1-2 after the bike result. As for the men, well, Jeff Symonds has opened up a 2-minute lead on Ian Young, and we've got Stephen Kilshaw in 3rd place after the swim and the bike. They're back to the women's leader, Magali Tisseyre.
And what's impressive is to see that 5-minute lead that Symonds has there over that 3rd placer Stephen Kilshaw. And don't forget, there's lots of age groupers that are out here right now as well. When you look at the champions, and we're looking at Heather Wurtell there, don't forget she and her husband Trevor both in the race, but we also have, of course, Rob Haskell and Lois Fearon. They're trying to win their age categories.
Yes, and we do still have the trials and tribulations of the green team. Anna Mae Pierce out of the water in very good time. She'll head into transition, be met by Sully and Force. In transition, you see, very well organized, a good time to credit the amazing job that race director Janet Anderson has done at this event. Now, already trying to cheat. They're trying to ride that bike out of transition. You can't do that. Anna Mae, clearly gassed, has a little bit of a lead over Ben Rutledge as he is about to feel the wrath of Team Green. Doesn't look like he's phased too much as he is being mocked. As he gets set to get on the bike himself, he is going up against Team Green. Of course, he's doing all 3 disciplines by himself. He's trying to cheat a little bit himself there. And the green team are doing a relay portion, not taking Ben too long to get up in front of Team Green on the race. 1 hill, less than 2 kilometers is all it takes as Team Green is starting to feel what it feels like to be a triathlete.
Oh God, I think we're like 2K in now, eh?
Stay in. Stay with him.
Feeling green under the suit too, I'm guessing. There you see Jeff Symonds really chews up the ground when he runs.
He certainly does. He set a new course record of 68 minutes at Fort Langley half marathon this year. Ian Young, we've heard, is now out of the race. That means Stephen Kilshaw is now officially 2nd.
Rounding that beautiful Subaru vehicle, this company really expanding its presence in triathlon.
Yes, we have. We now have our 4th Vancouver Triathlon, and we sponsor triathlons across the country, coast to coast. So we're involved from coast to coast, half Ironmans, West Coast Triathlon Series, and also the Ironman in Penticton, which is probably our largest sponsored event.
We just saw an image of Ray Shaw, presently in third place, the lady who won the age group race in Osoyoos last year and recent winner of the Oliver Half. And there was the lady who won this race last year, Magali, Tisseyre, our present leader. Second placer, Heather Wurtell. Ray Shaw, once again, the lady who's done a 10:02 in Hawaii, a super bike of 5:04. She's had a bike split there at the 112 miles. She'll be thrilled to be the only non-Canadian on the podium today.
Heather Wurtell looking very strong as well, trying to reel in Magali Tisseyre. We'll see if she can do so as this run kicks into high gear. As for looking strong, the Green Men weren't looking that the last time we saw them. Now trailing Ben Rutledge in this race. Sully and Force getting set to do the transition bike to run. You have to rack that bike first as they're getting set to try to reel in Ben Rutledge in their portion of the race. They'll change the chip. They're happy and they're off. Very solid start and probably getting out a little too quick.
Yeah, I would say so. What an amazing speed. And this lady, what speed? There's still only maybe 45 to 50 seconds separating first and second place. So the race is still on. A lot can happen in the final few kilometers of this race. Kilshaw having a tremendous race once again, looks to be safely onto a sub-4 performance as he did last year. Don't forget, second last year, he'd really love to come up with a win, but he was second to Jeff Symonds 2 years ago at the Beach Classic. As Ben Rutledge, he last year got third overall in the New Balance and Victoria at the sprint. Here he is coming up to the line, I believe 19th place overall. It's going to be a 1 hour 14:15 clocking, and he beats out the green team.
Perhaps they could have used a little more fuel.
This piece of equipment is a triathlon innovation. It's called a fuel belt and does exactly as the name states. It's the athlete's belt to carry their fuel. It's built ergonomically to fit comfortably around their waist, and even the bottles point slightly outwards so they don't poke into your side while you run. They carry their cola or their Gatorade or their water in here. They might drink it or pour it on their head. It also has a pocket which they carry their extras, and you might be interested to find out what the triathletes do carry on the run. Looking inside, we'll see some triathletes will carry a piece of chopped up power bar. It's chopped so it's easier for them to eat while they run. Or it could be a power gel. They like to bring their favorite flavors so that they are not stuck out there and having to take down something they're not ready to take. They also might bring salt tablets. Athletes sweat out salt while they're racing, and particularly on the run, so they actually supplement with salt to make sure that they don't cramp. And last, even some athletes will take Advil to take the edge off the pain just a little bit. Check with your doctor before you do that. We'll wear this belt. We'll make sure that you've got everything you need for your adventures out there, and we'll see you safely at the finish line.
Great to see Brent McMahon there showing us how it's done, and Ben Rutledge showing the green guys how it should be done as well there with that sub 1:15 clocking. Again, he loves this sport, part of the Speed Theory team, and the green team will be in shortly behind him. We understand the official winners today, Ramsey Esat from North Vancouver. He had a time of 1:06.56, and Martina Wan of Vancouver at 1:11.35 as the green team closes in. Sully and the Force.
Sully and the Force happy with just finishing, I think, with help from Anna Mae Pierce. We've got the final stretch coming up right after this break. Welcome back to the race, and Stephen, let's get to the finish line.
Well, here he is, Jeff Symonds of Penticton, 9th in Texas, 6th in California, 2nd in Oliver. Today, the biggest win of his career. Let's take a look at the time. 3:50.14, 3 minutes and 3 seconds off the record for the Subaru Vancouver International Half for the winner, Jeff Symonds. A brilliant performance, and Stephen Kilshaw, as I mentioned, went sub 4 hours last year. He's going to be taking second place again this year, but I believe he's going to be on to a faster time as he heads up the home stretch. Indeed it is. He comes in a couple of minutes faster than last year with a 3:57 clocking. Congratulations to that man, the winner of the Shawnigan Lake Half Iron as well. Let's find out who's in that third position. Last we saw, and it is Trevor Wurtell. And don't forget, his wife presently in second position as well. This is a great performance from him. He's had second in Victoria before on a couple of occasions. He was third here in 2007, third again in 2010. Trevor Wurtell on the podium in third place. So great performances from these guys. Remember, you've got Penticton, you've got Victoria and Vancouver Island well represented here, because in fourth place, the last we saw, there he is, Mike Neal, a man who set some great second place overall. He was fourth in Ironman Coeur d'Alene a couple of years ago, 8:58 there. He too just a couple of minutes over the 4-hour mark in fourth place.
Women not too far off the men's pace, and we've got an exciting finish there as well.
And look at this, Magali Tisseyre, don't forget she's the record holder at 4:14.34. That was the time she said. She broke away pay from Heather Wurtele in the transition. She's held it, getting some high fives here. She's taking back-to-back victories, as well as back-to-back victories a week ago in Lubbock Springs, Texas, today in Vancouver once again, and that is a record. It is now 4:12.13. She has knocked 2 minutes and 21 seconds off her own record.
Heather Wurtele never recovered from falling off the pace in the transition.
Maybe not, but she is a phenomenal racer, and if she continues at the pace she is going, she will also beat the record from last year, as we've just seen Magali close in there with a phenomenal time, 4:12.13. Here comes his second place. You've got Anthony Toth, another elite behind. Don't forget, he was in 9th place at Ironman Canada last year. She won St. George's, she's won Ironman Coeur d'Alene, today second place, and that time is exceptional. That is a 4:13.22, so also inside the previous record.
Two very good friends who love competing against each other. Who else do we have coming towards the finish line for the women, Steve?
There's Ray Shaw, third placer, and bear in mind she's an age grouper. She's going head-to-head with all these elites. She's beaten elites like Magali Jones and Lindsay Corbin in terms of time when she won it in Oliver just a few weeks ago. Here she is at this race for the first time, a winner as an age grouper in Osoyoos last year as well. Third place overall for Seattle's Ray Shaw. Tremendous job. What a performer on the bike. Ran through there tremendously, holding off two other Canadians. We believe we were in 4th and 5th places the last we saw them out on the course, as we see Brent Sire coming in just ahead of Amy Kirkham, taking 4th place overall, moving up from that 7th place of last year. And in 5th place, Christine Fletcher, a lady who's been 3rd at Ironman, 3rd in this race last year, and 5th today.
Fantastic day for the Canadians. A huge win for Jeff Symonds. He wins the Subaru Vancouver International Triathlon, edging out Stephen Kilshaw, who finishes 2nd for the 2nd consecutive year. The defending champion wins again. Magali Tisseyre edging out Heather Wurtele by just over a minute in a fantastic race. We'll speak to the winners next. You will not want to miss it. Jeff Symonds, a new course record holder, was 2nd in Oliver earlier this year, but breaks through in Vancouver.
Pretty awesome. I'm glad it's over, but pretty awesome to have taken the win.
Now, the water temperature this morning, did that play an issue at all for you? It was a rather cold swim temperature for you.
Well, Penticton's been pretty cold this year, so I'm kind of used to it, but I was lucky to have one of those Olympian guys, former Olympians here to get on his feet.
They were neck and neck throughout the race, and now our 1st and 2nd place finishers are arm in arm.
Well, I was lucky to have Heather up there, an excellent Ironman athlete to set a good pace on the bike. I was patient, and I think I was well recovered for the race. I mean, I ran well. I didn't expect Heather to scare me like that on the run, but she had a great run, and I think if she races her Ironmans like that, she's gonna kick ass.
Well, certainly it was incredible to see the competition amongst you two here today. Heather, tell us how you felt about the race. Were you getting a good push out there as well?
Yeah, it's so great to have Magali out there racing. I mean, we were neck and neck in the swim, and then, you know, just like running, passing into transition, and then trading positions on the bike. And I got to work on my transitions. I was pretty slow out of the second one, and just trying to keep her in my sights, because I know she can just run so well. And it's just motivating to have people out there that, you know, are fellow athletes that you really just like, and you wish them well, you know, but they make you push really hard too. So it was just a great day.
The final 2 stops on the Subaru Western Triathlon Series are Souk and Banff. Brought to you as always by Subaru. Sponsored by your Western Subaru dealers. Blue Competition Cycles. Ride Blue. And Lifesport Coaching. Triathlon training for all abilities anywhere in Canada. Congratulations to Jeff Symonds and Magali Tisseyre. For Stephen King, I'm Dan Murphy. Thank you so much for watching.